Your soul selected the exact circumstances of your birth, your parents, your challenges, your gifts, long before you took your first breath. And according to Edgar Cayce's trance readings, most people are living in complete ignorance of the mission they came here to complete. In his psychic sessions, Cayce revealed that every soul enters physical existence with a specific spiritual assignment, carefully chosen during the interval between lives. Yet the amnesia of birth causes most humans to wander through decades without ever recognizing the purpose encoded in their very existence. This isn't philosophical speculation. Cayce accessed the Akashic records for thousands of individuals and consistently found the same pattern. Each soul deliberately selects its life circumstances as the perfect classroom for lessons it needs to master. Right now, as you read this, your soul knows exactly what you came here to do, even if your conscious mind has forgotten. The question that should disturb your sleep tonight is this: are you fulfilling the mission you chose, or are you living someone else's script? Drop a comment sharing what you believe your soul's mission might be. Sometimes speaking it aloud is the first step toward remembering. Before your mother knew she was pregnant, before your father's hopes shaped themselves around your future, before anyone spoke your name, you existed. Not as potential, not as possibility, but as a conscious spiritual being making perhaps the most important decision a soul can make. You were choosing your next life. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet who conducted over 14,000 psychic readings while in trance states, revealed a truth that demolishes our comfortable assumptions about existence. Birth is not a beginning, it's a continuation. And every detail of the life you're living right now, the family you were born into, the body you inhabit, the challenges that seem so random, were selected by your own soul with surgical precision. In his readings, Cayce explained that during the time between physical incarnations, souls exist in a state of heightened awareness where they can perceive their own spiritual development with perfect clarity. Imagine standing before a mirror that shows not your reflection, but the complete truth of who you are spiritually. Every strength you've cultivated across lifetimes, every weakness that still limits you, every lesson you've mastered, and every one you've failed repeatedly. This is the state Cayce described. Your soul, in that condition of brutal honesty, looked at its own spiritual curriculum and said, I need specific experiences to grow. I need particular challenges to overcome certain karmic patterns. I need these exact circumstances. And then your soul went shopping for a life. This wasn't random assignment. This wasn't punishment. This was conscious selection. Cayce's readings revealed that souls choose their parents not because those parents will give them the easiest life, but because those particular individuals will provide the precise emotional, psychological, and spiritual friction needed for growth. That difficult relationship with your father, your soul knew that was coming. That struggle you've had your entire life with self-worth. Your soul understood that conquering that specific challenge was essential to your development. The talents that come so naturally to you that you barely value them, those are tools your soul brought with it, refined over previous lifetimes, meant to be used in service of your current mission. Here's what stops most people dead in their tracks. Cayce insisted that your soul chose not just the pleasant parts of your life, but especially the difficult parts, the limitations, the obstacles, the heartbreaks. Because from the soul's perspective, comfort doesn't produce growth, resistance does. A seed doesn't become a mighty tree by sitting on the surface of soft soil. It has to push through darkness, through crushing pressure, through dense earth. That pushing is what creates strength. Your soul knew this. Your soul, before you were born, looked at the challenges you would face and said, yes, this is exactly what I need. Think about that for a moment. Really think about it. The thing you've been complaining about, the circumstance you've been trying to escape, the limitation you've been cursing. What if that's not a mistake in the cosmic plan? What if that's the point? What if your soul specifically chose that challenge because overcoming it would develop a spiritual capacity you cannot gain any other way? Cayce's readings consistently showed that souls don't choose easy lives. They choose meaningful ones. They choose lives that will force them to develop specific qualities: patience through prolonged suffering, compassion through experiencing hardship, wisdom through making and correcting mistakes, courage through facing specific fears. But here's where it gets even more challenging to accept. Cayce revealed that souls also choose the era and location of their birth, based on the opportunities those times and places provide for spiritual work. You weren't born in this specific time period by accident. Your soul looked at the challenges facing humanity right now, the spiritual crisis, the technological transformation, the collective awakening that's struggling to occur, and said, I have something to contribute to this moment. There is work that can only be done in this generation, in this culture, with the tools and awareness available right now. And your soul signed up for it. This raises an uncomfortable question. If your soul chose this life for a specific purpose, why don't you remember what that purpose is? Why aren't you born with a clear instruction manual? Cayce explained that the veil of forgetting is itself part of the design. If you consciously remembered your soul's mission from day one, you wouldn't develop the qualities necessary to fulfill it. The searching is part of the growing. The questioning is part of the awakening. The struggle to discover your purpose is what develops the spiritual muscle you need to carry out that purpose. A student who's handed all the answers never learns to think. A soul that's handed its mission on a silver platter never develops the discernment and strength required to complete it. So how do you discover what your soul chose? Cayce offered clear guidance. Look at your life not as a series of random events, but as a carefully designed curriculum. What keeps showing up? What patterns repeat despite your best efforts to avoid them? What lessons do you seem to be forced to learn over and over? Those repetitions aren't failures. They're your soul trying to get your conscious mind's attention. It's like a teacher who keeps putting the same problem on the board in different forms until the student finally understands the underlying principle. Your soul is doing that with your life experiences. What comes naturally to you with almost no effort? Those are the tools you brought with you, skills refined over many lifetimes, meant to be used in service of your mission in this life. But here's the trap so many fall into. They assume that because something comes easily, it must not be important. That's backwards. The things that flow through you effortlessly are often the precise instruments your soul knew it would need. A musician doesn't question why the instrument fits their hands. They play it. What instrument has your soul placed in your hands? And are you actually playing it, or are you ignoring it because it seems too simple, too obvious, too much like just being yourself? And what challenges you most deeply? Not the minor irritations, but the deep struggles that seem to touch something core to your identity. Those aren't obstacles to your mission. Those are the mission. Or at least, they're the training ground. Cayce's readings showed again and again that souls specifically choose to incarnate with certain weaknesses or in certain challenging circumstances because the work of overcoming those things develops the exact spiritual capacities they need. Someone whose soul mission involves teaching others about forgiveness might choose a life filled with betrayals, not as punishment, but as the laboratory in which they'll discover genuine forgiveness. Someone whose mission involves leadership might choose a life where they start with no power or recognition, so they can learn what real authority looks like from the ground up. Now let me ask you something that might make you deeply uncomfortable. What if you're not doing it? What if you've been so busy trying to build the life you think you should want that you've completely missed the life your soul actually chose? Cayce's readings revealed a heartbreaking pattern. Many souls complete an entire lifetime without ever engaging with the mission they came to fulfill. They're not bad people. They're not lazy. They're just distracted, caught up in the wrong race, pursuing goals their ego selected instead of the purpose their soul encoded. Think about how you spend your days. Think about what consumes your energy, occupies your thoughts, drives your decisions. Now ask yourself with brutal honesty, is this what I came here to do? Is this the work that could only be done by me in this body, in this time? Or am I living on autopilot, following a script written by my culture, my family, my fears? Because here's what Cayce made absolutely clear. Your soul's mission isn't something you have to create from scratch. It's something you have to remember and then have the courage to live. The remembering often comes in moments of deep honesty with yourself. It comes when you stop performing and start feeling. It comes when you ask not, what do other people expect of me? But what do I know to be true in the deepest part of myself? Your soul speaks, but usually in whispers, in intuitions, in moments of recognition that feel like remembering rather than learning. It's that sudden sense of, yes, this is right, that defies logical explanation. It's the pull towards certain work, certain places, certain people, that your rational mind can't justify but your deeper self knows is essential. But here's where most people get stuck. They wait for absolute certainty before taking action. They want the entire mission laid out in detailed steps before they commit to the first one. That's not how it works. Cayce's readings showed that the path becomes clear through walking it, not through studying maps from a distance. You have to start moving in the direction of your deepest truth, even when you can't see the whole route. Each step taken in alignment with your soul's purpose reveals the next step. Each choice made from authentic inner knowing opens doors that weren't visible before. But you have to move. You have to risk being wrong. You have to trust that your soul, which was wise enough to choose this entire life setup, is also wise enough to guide you through it. Consider what lights you up. Not what you think should light you up, not what impresses other people, but what genuinely makes you feel most alive, most yourself, most connected to something larger than your individual existence. Those aren't random preferences. Those are clues. Your soul left breadcrumbs. The question is whether you're paying attention to them or whether you're so busy following someone else's trail that you're missing your own. And what about the people in your life? Cayce revealed that souls often agree to incarnate together, taking on different roles in each lifetime to help each other learn specific lessons. That person who challenges you most, the family member you clash with, the colleague who brings out your worst reactions, the friend whose life path seems to highlight everything you're not doing with yours. What if they're part of your soul's training program? What if, before you were both born, your souls looked at each other and said, "I'll be that for you if you'll be this for me. We'll push each other toward growth, even if it's uncomfortable." Not every relationship is meant to be easy. Some are meant to be transformative. The question is whether you're learning what those difficult relationships came to teach you, or whether you're just wishing they would be different. If you're feeling uncomfortable right now, good. That discomfort might be the sound of your soul trying to get your attention. Because here's what Cayce understood that most people avoid. There are consequences to ignoring your soul's mission. Not punishment from an angry God, but natural consequences. A life lived out of alignment with your soul's purpose is a life of persistent dissatisfaction that no amount of external success can fix. You can acquire all the money, status, and comfort in the world, but if you're not doing what you came here to do, there will be an ache nothing can soothe. That's not depression, that's not ingratitude, that's your soul trying to redirect you, using the only language available, the feeling that something essential is missing. On the other hand, a life lived in alignment with your soul's mission isn't necessarily easy or comfortable, but it has something that worldly success can never provide: meaning. Deep, unshakable meaning. The sense that your existence matters, that your struggles are purposeful, that you're part of something larger than your individual story. Cayce saw this pattern repeatedly. People living humble, challenging lives who nonetheless possessed a spiritual contentment that eluded the wealthy and powerful because they were doing what they came here to do. So let me be direct with you. What is your soul asking of you that you're pretending not to hear? What truth about your purpose have you been avoiding because acting on it would require changes you're afraid to make? What mission have you been postponing until conditions are perfect, until you're more prepared, until it's more convenient? Because your soul didn't choose this life thinking, "I'll get to my real purpose eventually, after I've satisfied all these other obligations." Your soul chose this life as the arena in which to complete specific spiritual work, and the clock is ticking, not to create fear, but to create urgency. Because Cayce was clear, we will have other lifetimes, other chances. But this specific mission, in this specific body, in this specific time, this opportunity is now. If you've been waiting for permission to pursue what your deepest self knows is true, consider this that permission. If you've been waiting for a sign that you're on the right track, consider this that sign. If you've been waiting for someone to tell you that yes, that calling you feel is real and important, let me tell you, it is. Your soul didn't make a mistake. The mission you chose isn't too big for you. It's precisely calibrated to push you to your edge and help you grow beyond it. But you have to choose it, consciously, daily, despite fear, despite doubt, despite the voices telling you to be realistic, be practical, be safe. Your soul wasn't being realistic when it chose this life. It was being ambitious. It was betting on your potential. The question is whether you're willing to bet on it too. Are you willing to honor the wisdom of the being you were before you forgot? Are you willing to trust that the mission you chose in clarity is still the mission you need to fulfill, even from within the fog of physical existence? Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We're exploring more of Cayce's profound teachings that challenge everything you thought you knew about life and purpose. And drop a comment below. What do you believe your soul's mission is? Sometimes articulating it begins the process of living it. Your soul chose you for this life. It chose your challenges. It chose your gifts. It chose the exact time and place of your existence, because there is work that only you can do. The tragedy isn't that the work is difficult. The tragedy is that so many people die without ever attempting it, without ever even acknowledging it, because they were too busy living the life they thought they should want. Don't be one of them. Your soul made a choice before you were born. The question that should haunt you, that should drive you, that should wake you up in the middle of the night is this: are you honoring that choice? Are you fulfilling the mission only you can fulfill? Or are you still pretending you don't know what it is? Because deep down, beneath all the noise and distraction, you do know. Your soul knows. It's always known. The only question is whether you're brave enough to remember, and then to live accordingly. Edgar Cayce saw something about Jesus in his trance states that would shatter everything you think you know about religious divisions. While the world's faiths argue over who Jesus really was, Cayce revealed a truth so profound it could reconcile them all, or expose the deepest misunderstanding in human history. In his psychic readings, Cayce described Jesus not as a figure who belonged to one religion, but as a cosmic being whose mission transcended every religious boundary ever created. What he discovered challenges Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and Jews to reconsider their most fundamental beliefs about the Master. This isn't about choosing which religion got it right. It's about understanding why they all saw different facets of the same divine diamond. The question isn't who owns Jesus, but whether you're ready to meet him beyond the walls your religion built. Drop a comment sharing which religious perspective on Jesus resonates most with your soul's journey right now. Most people live their entire lives believing their religion has the exclusive truth about Jesus. Christianity claims he's the only Son of God and Savior. Islam reveres him as a prophet but not divine. Judaism rejects his messianic claims entirely. Hinduism sees him as an avatar or enlightened master. Buddhism acknowledges him as a bodhisattva figure. And the divisions run so deep that wars have been fought, families torn apart, and billions of souls convinced that salvation depends on getting this one question right. But Edgar Cayce, in his profound psychic readings spanning decades, revealed something that could transform how humanity understands not just Jesus, but the very nature of religious truth itself. Cayce's revelations didn't come from theological debate or religious authority. They came from a state of consciousness so deep that he accessed what he called the universal consciousness, the Akashic records, the very mind of God. And what he found there about Jesus defied every religious box humanity tried to put him in. Cayce revealed that Jesus of Nazareth was the final earthly incarnation of a soul who had been preparing for this cosmic mission through multiple lifetimes. This wasn't some random selection by God. This was a soul who had volunteered, who had trained through incarnations in ancient Egypt as the high priest Rata, in Persia as Zend, and through other lives where he progressively mastered the laws of the material and spiritual realms. Each religion that encounters Jesus sees him through the lens of their own spiritual framework, and here's the shocking part. According to Cayce, they're all partially right. Christianity recognizes the Christ consciousness that fully manifested in Jesus. They see the divine made flesh, God walking among humanity, the perfect sacrifice for human redemption. And Cayce confirmed this truth, but with a crucial expansion. The Christ, he explained, is not a person, but a consciousness a state of perfect attunement with the divine. Jesus the man achieved this Christ consciousness so completely that he became the pattern, the way shower for all humanity. When Christians worship Jesus as divine, they're recognizing something profoundly real. The total merging of human and divine will that Cayce said is the destiny of every soul. But here's where it gets challenging for traditional Christian theology. Cayce revealed that Jesus didn't come to establish a new religion or to be the exclusive doorway to God. He came to demonstrate what every human soul is capable of becoming. The Christ consciousness that manifested in Jesus is the same consciousness that Buddha touched, that Krishna embodied, that every great spiritual master has accessed. Jesus achieved it most completely, most perfectly, making him the supreme example and elder brother to humanity. But the path he walked is the path every soul must eventually walk. Now consider Islam's perspective. Muslims honor Jesus, Isa in Arabic, as one of the greatest prophets born of the Virgin Mary, performing miracles and bringing God's message to humanity. They reject the divinity of Jesus and the concept of the Trinity, seeing these as corruptions of pure monotheism. When you look at Cayce's readings, there's a bridge here that most people miss. Cayce confirmed that Jesus the man was not God the Father. The Father, the creative force, the first cause, remains transcendent, infinite, beyond human comprehension. What Jesus manifested was the Christ pattern, the perfect channel through which the divine could work in the material world. Islam's fierce protection of God's absolute unity isn't wrong in Cayce's framework. The issue is one of understanding levels of reality. Jesus, the personality, the historical man walking in Palestine, was a human soul. But Jesus fully inhabited and expressed the Christ consciousness, becoming so transparent to the divine that to see him was to see the Father working through him. Muslims are right that we shouldn't confuse the manifest form with the ultimate reality, but they may not yet recognize that the Christ pattern Jesus embodied is the very bridge between human and divine that their own tradition seeks. Judaism's relationship with Jesus is perhaps the most painful. The religion that birthed him largely rejected his messianic claims and continues to wait for their Messiah. From the Jewish perspective, Jesus didn't fulfill the prophecies. He didn't bring peace, didn't rebuild the temple, didn't gather the exiles. He was a failed Messiah at best, a dangerous heretic at worst. But Cayce revealed something that should make both Jews and Christians reconsider their positions. The messianic age that Judaism awaits isn't about one person's arrival. It's about humanity's collective spiritual evolution. Jesus came not to end the world, but to show the world how to end its separation from God. The prophecies Judaism cherishes aren't false, they're ongoing. The gathering of exiles is the gathering of souls back to God consciousness. The rebuilding of the temple is the reconstruction of the human body as a worthy dwelling place for the divine spirit. The messianic peace comes when enough humans awaken to the Christ pattern within themselves. Judaism rejected Jesus because they expected an external savior to fix the world. Jesus came to show that the savior must awaken within each soul. The Jewish tradition's emphasis on ethical living, on repairing the world through righteous action, aligns perfectly with Cayce's teaching that spirituality without practical service is empty. When we turn to Eastern traditions, the picture becomes even more fascinating. Hinduism, with its concept of avatars, divine incarnations who descend to restore Dharma, has no problem seeing Jesus as such a being. Some Hindu teachers have embraced Jesus as a realized master, perhaps an avatar of Vishnu or an expression of Brahman in human form. The yogic understanding of enlightenment as the union of Atman and Brahman, individual soul and universal soul, parallels exactly what Cayce taught about Jesus achieving perfect unity with the Christ consciousness. Cayce revealed that during the so-called lost years of Jesus' life, not recorded in the Bible, he traveled and studied extensively. While Cayce didn't specifically confirm Jesus studied in India, as some traditions claim, he made clear that the soul who became Jesus had incarnated in many lands and absorbed wisdom from multiple spiritual streams. The techniques of meditation, fasting, and spiritual discipline that Jesus used were not unique to Judaism. They were universal practices for awakening consciousness. Hindu recognition of Jesus as a self-realized being isn't syncretism. It's recognizing the universal laws of spiritual development that transcend cultural religious forms. Buddhism offers yet another lens. Buddhists see Jesus as someone who clearly attained enlightenment, who embodied compassion and wisdom, who taught about overcoming suffering and the illusion of separation. The Buddhist concept of bodhisattva, an enlightened being who delays final liberation to help others awaken, resonates deeply with the mission of Jesus as Cayce described it. Jesus had evolved beyond the need for earthly incarnation, yet he chose to return once more, to incarnate into the most challenging possible circumstances, to demonstrate the path of awakening for all who would follow. The Buddha taught that clinging to self is the root of suffering. Jesus taught, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. Different words, same essential truth. The ego self must die for the God self to fully live. Buddhists practice mindfulness to awaken to present reality. Jesus taught the kingdom of heaven is within you, accessible in the eternal now. The parallels aren't coincidental. They reflect the same spiritual laws discovered by those who go deep enough into consciousness. But here's what Cayce forces us to confront. If all these religions are seeing different facets of the same truth about Jesus, why are they still divided? The answer is both simple and devastating. Religious institutions became more invested in their own authority and survival than in the truth their founders revealed. Each tradition crystallized around certain aspects of Jesus' teaching while ignoring or rejecting others. Christianity emphasized belief and salvation. Islam emphasized submission and prophetic guidance. Judaism emphasized law and ethical community. Hinduism emphasized consciousness and liberation. Buddhism emphasized practice and awakening. All true, all partial, all missing the complete picture that Cayce revealed. The Jesus of Cayce's readings didn't come to start Christianity. He came to demonstrate the Christ pattern available to every soul, regardless of religious affiliation. He came to show that God isn't a tribal deity who favors one group. The creative force that spoke through Jesus is the same force that inspired Buddha, Krishna, Lao Tzu, and every genuine spiritual teacher throughout history. What made Jesus unique wasn't exclusivity but completeness. He embodied the path most fully, most perfectly, in the most challenging environment. Think about what this means for your own life right now. You've probably been taught that your religious identity determines your spiritual destiny, that you must believe certain things, reject other things, belong to the right group, say the right prayers. But what if that entire framework is the problem? What if Jesus came precisely to shatter that kind of religious tribalism? Cayce taught that Jesus' core message was simple. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are not separate from God. The kingdom of heaven, the state of unity with the divine, is within you right now. The way to access it isn't through believing the right doctrines, but through transforming your consciousness, through love, service, forgiveness, and surrender of the personal will to the divine will. Every religion that formed around Jesus eventually built walls. Our way is right, their way is wrong. We have the truth, they are deceived. Salvation comes only through our door. But Jesus never taught exclusive salvation through religious affiliation. He taught transformation through awakening to your true nature as a child of God. He taught that the way to the Father is through becoming like Him, embodying love so completely that there's no room left for fear, judgment, or separation. Let's get specific about what this means practically. A Christian watching this might feel their faith threatened. Are you saying Jesus isn't the only way? Listen carefully. Cayce affirmed that Jesus is the pattern, the most complete expression of the way to divine union that humanity has ever witnessed. No one comes to full God realization without eventually embodying the Christ consciousness that Jesus demonstrated. In that sense, Jesus is indeed the way, but Christ consciousness isn't the property of Christianity. It's the universal pattern of divine human unity that exists in every tradition under different names. A Muslim watching this might wonder if Cayce's teaching contradicts Islamic monotheism. It doesn't. Allah remains absolutely one, transcendent, infinite. Jesus the man wasn't Allah. But the Christ pattern that worked through Jesus was Allah's will perfectly manifested in human form. The names and concepts differ, but the reality is the same. God's purpose is to bring souls back into conscious unity with the divine source. A Hindu or Buddhist watching this recognizes immediately what Cayce was pointing to. The same enlightenment, the same self-realization that your traditions teach. Jesus walked your path and completed it. His message and yours converge at the peak of the mountain, even though the trails started from different sides. A Jew watching this might finally understand that Jesus didn't come to destroy Torah, but to fulfill its deepest spiritual intention, the transformation of human consciousness to embody God's will. The external laws were always meant to lead to internal transformation. Jesus lived that transformation and invited all to follow. But here's the question that should be keeping you awake tonight. Which Jesus do you serve? The Jesus of your religious institution, carefully packaged to support denominational doctrines and organizational authority, or the cosmic Christ that Cayce revealed, the pattern of divine human unity that transcends every religious boundary and calls you to your own awakening? Most people never seriously examine this question. They inherit a religious identity, absorb its teachings about Jesus, and assume they know who he was. But what if everything your religion taught you about Jesus was filtered through centuries of political compromise, doctrinal disputes, and institutional self-preservation? What if the real Jesus, the cosmic being on a mission to awaken humanity, is far more radical, more universal, more demanding than the domesticated version your tradition presents? Cayce revealed that Jesus understood something most of his followers still haven't grasped. God doesn't want your worship. God wants your transformation. The Father doesn't need you to believe correct doctrines about Jesus. The Father wants you to do what Jesus did. Surrender your personal will so completely that the divine will flows through you unobstructed. This is what it means to follow Jesus, not to join the right church or say the right prayers, but to walk the same path of consciousness he walked. Every religion contains truth. Every religion also contains distortions created by human ego and institutional needs. The real question isn't which religion is right about Jesus. The real question is whether you're willing to let go of your religious identity long enough to encounter the living Christ consciousness that Jesus embodied. Because that consciousness doesn't care what name you call it. It doesn't care which tradition you come from. It only cares whether you're ready to die to your small self and awaken to your true nature as a divine being. This is why Cayce's readings about Jesus are so threatening to religious authorities. They dissolve the boundaries that give religious institutions their power. They remove the mediators and gatekeepers who claim exclusive access to God. They place responsibility for spiritual awakening squarely on each individual soul. No priest or imam or guru can do this work for you. They can guide, support, inspire, but the transformation must happen within your own consciousness. So let me ask you directly, what would change in your life if you truly understood that Jesus didn't come to start a religion, but to show you who you really are? What would shift if you recognized that the Christ consciousness he embodied isn't the exclusive property of Christianity, but the universal pattern of human spiritual evolution? What would transform if you stopped defending your religious identity and started pursuing the actual consciousness Jesus demonstrated? These aren't theoretical questions. This is the work of your soul's evolution. Every moment you spend defending religious boundaries is a moment you're not spending on actual spiritual transformation. Every argument about whose doctrine is correct is energy not being invested in embodying love, forgiveness, and service. Every time you judge another tradition as wrong or inferior, you're moving away from the consciousness Jesus taught. Cayce revealed that the soul of Jesus volunteered for the most difficult mission imaginable, to incarnate into a world of religious division, political oppression, and spiritual blindness, and to demonstrate the path to God realization so clearly that no one could miss it. He succeeded. The demonstration was perfect. But humanity responded by creating competing religions that each claimed ownership of his message while missing the message itself. The Christ doesn't belong to Christians. The Prophet doesn't belong to Muslims. The Master doesn't belong to any single tradition. Jesus belongs to every soul seeking to awaken. His message transcends every religious boundary because it addresses the universal human condition. We are divine beings who have forgotten who we are, and the way back home is through transformation of consciousness. Now here's the uncomfortable truth that Cayce forces us to face. If all religions are seeing partial truth about Jesus, then all religions are also missing partial truth. Your tradition, whatever it is, has some truth and some distortion. The only way forward is radical honesty, willingness to examine your beliefs without defensiveness, to let go of what doesn't serve your actual spiritual growth, and to embrace truth wherever you find it, even in traditions you were taught to reject. This isn't religious relativism where everything is equally true. It's recognition that the ultimate reality Jesus embodied is bigger than any religious framework humans have constructed. The Christ consciousness isn't Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, or Jewish. It's the universal pattern of divine human unity that all genuine spiritual paths are seeking. So what does this mean for how you live tomorrow? It means you stop defending religious boundaries and start embodying spiritual principles. It means you recognize Jesus in every person seeking to awaken, regardless of their tradition. It means you understand that arguing about doctrine is a distraction from the actual work of transformation. It means you take responsibility for your own consciousness instead of outsourcing your spiritual growth to religious authorities. Are you living the life the Christ pattern is calling you to live? Or are you hiding behind religious identity, using belief as a substitute for transformation? Are you serving the living Christ consciousness or the institutional religion that claims to represent it? Are you walking the path Jesus walked, surrendering ego, embodying love, serving others? Or are you settling for membership in a club that talks about Jesus while ignoring his actual teaching? These questions should disturb you. They should create sacred discomfort, because if you're comfortable with your current religious understanding, you're probably not growing. Spiritual evolution requires dying to what you think you know, so that deeper truth can emerge. This is what Jesus meant when he said you must be born again, not a one-time religious conversion, but an ongoing transformation of consciousness. Cayce's revelation about Jesus and the world's religions isn't meant to create a new theology. It's meant to shatter your theological certainty and drive you back to direct spiritual experience. Stop arguing about who Jesus was and start becoming what he demonstrated. Stop debating which religion is right and start practicing the universal principles of spiritual awakening. Stop defending your tradition's Jesus and start encountering the cosmic Christ that transcends all traditions. The world's religions will continue their debates about Jesus. Let them. Your work is different. Your work is to embody the Christ pattern in your own life, to demonstrate divine love in practical action, to surrender your personal will to the divine will, to see every person as a soul on the journey to awakening. This is what Jesus actually taught. This is what Cayce's readings reveal. This is what your soul already knows is true. So I'll leave you with this final question, the one that really matters. When you stand before the infinite divine consciousness that Jesus called Father, what will matter more? That you believed the correct doctrines about Jesus, or that you actually became like him? If you found value in this exploration, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges you to genuine spiritual transformation. And drop a comment. I want to know which religious perspective on Jesus resonated with you, and more importantly, how this understanding changes how you're going to live starting right now. Your thoughts don't just influence your reality. According to Edgar Cayce, they are literally constructing it right now, brick by invisible brick, in dimensions you haven't learned to perceive yet. In his trance states, Cayce revealed something that terrifies and liberates in equal measure. Every thought you've ever had continues to exist as a living force in the spiritual realms, actively shaping not just your current circumstances, but your future incarnations, your soul's trajectory, and even the physical conditions of your body. The ancient masters knew this, which is why they guarded their minds like sacred temples. But here's what Cayce exposed that changes everything. Most people are unconsciously creating their own suffering, disease, and spiritual stagnation through thought patterns they inherited and never questioned. Your mind isn't just receiving reality, it's broadcasting it into existence across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Right now, in this very moment, your thoughts are determining whether you're building a spiritual mansion or a prison you'll inhabit for lifetimes. What are you actually creating with the thoughts you're thinking today? Share in the comments what patterns you've noticed in your own life that might be your thoughts manifesting. There's a reason Edgar Cayce called thoughts things and deeds. In his readings, he didn't speak metaphorically. He meant this literally. Every thought you generate becomes an actual entity in the mental and spiritual planes, a form that possesses its own vibrational frequency, its own magnetic properties, and its own lifespan. These thought forms don't simply evaporate when you stop thinking them. They continue to exist, attracting similar vibrations, gathering energy, and eventually manifesting as circumstances, relationships, health conditions, and even the geography of your next incarnation. Cayce revealed that the mind operates on 3 levels simultaneously: the conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious. But here's what most people miss. These aren't separate compartments. They're interpenetrating dimensions of one unified field of consciousness, and your thoughts ripple through all 3 simultaneously. When you think a thought consciously, your subconscious mind records it, your superconscious mind connects it to universal patterns, and all 3 levels begin working to materialize it. This process is happening right now, with every thought flowing through your awareness. What makes this terrifying is that Cayce found most people's thoughts are not their own. In his readings, he explained that we inherit thought patterns from our parents, our culture, our previous incarnations, and even from the collective consciousness of humanity. You might think you're choosing your thoughts, but Cayce would ask, are those thoughts truly yours, or are you simply recycling mental programs installed before you learned to question them? The alcoholic doesn't consciously choose to crave alcohol. The thought form of addiction, built over years or lifetimes, has accumulated so much energy that it dominates the mental field. The anxious person doesn't decide to worry. Worry has become a habitual thought structure with its own gravitational pull. This is why Cayce emphasized that spiritual growth begins with mental discipline. Not positive thinking as a superficial technique, but actual reconstruction of your mental architecture. He revealed that every cell in your body responds to thought. When you think thoughts of fear, your cells contract, your immune system weakens, and your body begins manifesting the very conditions you fear. When you think thoughts aligned with divine love and purpose, your cells expand, your body's healing mechanisms activate, and you begin attracting circumstances that support your soul's mission. But here's where Cayce's teachings become revolutionary. He said that thought creates not just in the physical realm, but in the spiritual realms where you'll eventually reside. The thoughts you think today are literally constructing the environment you'll inhabit after death. In his readings, Cayce described how souls who spent their earthly lives in fear, judgment, and negativity found themselves in corresponding after-death dimensions, not because God punished them, but because their habitual thoughts had built those realities. Conversely, those who cultivated thoughts of compassion, service, and divine connection found themselves in realms of light and beauty that matched their mental creations. This isn't theological speculation. Cayce described the mechanics. Thought is creative energy. When consistently directed, it coalesces into form. In the physical world, this process takes time, which gives us the mercy of revision. But in the spiritual dimensions where time operates differently, thought manifests almost instantaneously. This is why the after-death experience varies so dramatically between souls. Each person immediately experiences the world their thoughts have prepared. Now consider what this means for your current life. Cayce revealed that your present circumstances are primarily the materialization of your past thoughts, not just from this lifetime, but accumulated patterns from previous incarnations. That chronic health condition? It may be the manifestation of thought patterns of self-criticism or guilt carried across lifetimes. That recurring relationship pattern, it could be a thought form of unworthiness that keeps attracting situations to validate it. Your financial situation, your social connections, even your physical appearance, all influenced by the thoughts you've held most consistently. But here's the empowering truth Cayce emphasized. If thought created your current reality, thought can recreate it. You're not trapped by your past thought forms. Every moment offers a choice point where you can redirect your mental energy. However, Cayce warned this isn't simple or quick. Thought forms built over years or lifetimes have tremendous momentum. Changing them requires sustained, conscious effort, not just wanting things to be different, but actually rebuilding your mental patterns through daily practice. In his readings, Cayce offered specific guidance on thought transformation. First, he emphasized the power of ideals, not goals or wishes, but spiritual ideals that become your mental compass. When you establish a clear spiritual ideal, every thought can be measured against it. Does this thought align with my ideal of compassionate service? Does this fear-based thought serve my soul's purpose? This practice creates a filter that gradually transforms your habitual thought patterns. Second, Cayce stressed the importance of catching thoughts at their genesis. Most people don't notice thoughts until they've already gained momentum and triggered emotional reactions. But in meditation and self-observation, you can develop the ability to witness thoughts arising before they fully form. This is where you have maximum power to choose, to either feed the thought with attention or let it dissolve unused. The thought of jealousy arises. You notice it before it spirals into a story. You choose not to energize it. This practice, repeated thousands of times, gradually weakens old thought forms and prevents new destructive ones from taking root. Third, Cayce revealed that thought is most powerful when aligned with feeling and will. A thought alone has creative force, but a thought infused with deep emotion and backed by decisive will becomes tremendously potent. This is why worry is so destructive. It combines thought with intense emotion and unconscious will, creating exactly what you don't want. But this same mechanism can be used consciously. When you think thoughts of healing while feeling deep gratitude and willing wholeness with every fiber of your being, you activate creative forces that can reshape even chronic physical conditions. Are you beginning to see the staggering responsibility this places on you? Cayce's readings strip away every excuse. You cannot blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your life situation. Yes, you face consequences from past thoughts, but even those consequences are opportunities for new creative choices. The question isn't whether your thoughts are shaping your reality. They absolutely are, every moment. The question is, are you shaping them consciously or unconsciously? Consider your typical thought patterns today. How much time did you spend thinking thoughts of criticism, of yourself, others, circumstances? How much time in worry, planning for problems that haven't occurred? How much time in regret, replaying past situations you cannot change? Each of these is a creative act, sending energy into the formation of future experiences that will validate those same patterns. You're not just thinking about problems, you're building them, feeding them, ensuring they'll manifest. Now contrast that with thoughts of appreciation. When did you last think thoughts of genuine gratitude for your existence, your opportunities, your spiritual journey? When did you consciously direct thoughts of compassion towards someone you find difficult? When did you deliberately visualize yourself embodying the highest version of your spiritual ideal? These thoughts seem passive, perhaps naive, but Cayce revealed they're the most powerful creative acts available to you. They're literally constructing your future reality. Here's what Cayce emphasized that makes this practical. You don't have to change all your thoughts overnight. That's impossible and leads to discouragement. Instead, commit to brief periods of conscious thought direction. 5 minutes in the morning, where you deliberately think thoughts aligned with your spiritual ideal. 5 minutes at night reviewing your day and consciously releasing thoughts of judgment or fear. In those 10 minutes, you're planting seeds in your subconscious that will gradually grow and influence your habitual thought patterns throughout the day. But Cayce also warned about the danger of spiritual materialism, using thought power merely to acquire things or manipulate circumstances for ego gratification. He saw countless people trying to manifest wealth, status, or power through mental techniques, and he observed that while this sometimes worked temporarily, it ultimately led to spiritual stagnation or regression. Why? Because thoughts aligned purely with material desires strengthen the false self, the ego that believes it's separate from God and must compete for resources. Such thoughts create temporary gains, but lead to spiritual poverty. The thoughts that truly transform your reality are those aligned with your soul's purpose and divine love. When you think, "How can I serve today?" you activate forces that bring opportunities for meaningful contribution. When you think, "I am one with divine consciousness," you begin dissolving the illusion of separation that causes all suffering. When you think, "This challenging person is my teacher," you transform obstacle into opportunity and strengthen your capacity for compassion. Cayce revealed something profound about the mechanics of thought and karma. Every thought generates karma. Not just actions, but thoughts themselves create karmic patterns that must eventually be balanced. A thought of hatred towards someone creates a karmic link that may take lifetimes to resolve. A thought of blessing towards someone creates a karmic connection that will eventually return as blessing. This means you're constantly creating future life circumstances through your current mental activity. The person you resent today may be someone you'll need to serve in a future incarnation to balance the negative thought forms you're creating now. This understanding transforms how you approach difficult people and situations. That person who triggered anger in you today, yes, they may have behaved poorly, but your angry thoughts toward them create karmic links and thought forms that will follow you. Not because God is keeping score, but because thought is creative force that must eventually materialize. You're literally creating future confrontations or the need for future reconciliation through your thoughts now. The person who learns to bless even their enemies isn't being naive. They're demonstrating advanced spiritual understanding of how reality actually works. I want you to consider something that might disturb you. What if your thoughts about yourself are the most powerful creative force in your life? Cayce found that self-concept, the mental image you hold of who you are, acts as a blueprint that your subconscious mind works tirelessly to manifest. If you think of yourself as limited, damaged, or unworthy, your subconscious accepts this as instruction and creates experiences that confirm it. If you think of yourself as a spiritual being on a temporary earth journey, learning and growing, your subconscious works to manifest circumstances that support that identity. This is why Cayce emphasized meditation and attunement to the divine within. In meditation, you temporarily step outside your habitual self-concept and experience yourself as pure consciousness, connected to the infinite. This experience plants a seed thought that begins transforming your self-concept from the inside out. You're not trying to convince yourself of something intellectually. You're having direct experience of your true nature, and that experience generates thoughts more powerful than any mental affirmation. Let me share something from Cayce's readings that addresses the most common objection to all this. But I've tried positive thinking and it didn't work. Cayce would say you probably tried to think positively with your conscious mind while your subconscious held opposite beliefs. That's like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and one on the brake. Real thought transformation happens when conscious and subconscious align. This alignment occurs through consistent practice over time, through meditation that accesses the subconscious, and through examining and releasing the deep beliefs that contradict your conscious desires. If you've wanted better health but hold subconscious beliefs that you don't deserve it, or that illness is your identity, positive thoughts about health will make little impact. The work is to uncover and transform those subconscious thought forms. This is spiritual psychology. Examining the thoughts beneath your thoughts, the beliefs you didn't consciously choose but inherited and internalized. And here's what makes this so urgent. Cayce revealed that we're in a time of planetary transformation where thought will become increasingly potent. The veils between thought and manifestation are thinning. What used to take years to materialize may soon manifest in months or even weeks. This acceleration is part of humanity's spiritual evolution, but it means our mental discipline becomes more critical than ever. Unconscious negative thoughts will create problems faster. Conscious aligned thoughts will create positive change faster. We're entering an era where humanity will be forced to take responsibility for its collective thought forms. Think about the collective thoughts of fear, division, and scarcity that dominate much of human consciousness right now. These massive thought forms are materializing as conflict, disease, and environmental destruction. But Cayce also saw that small groups of people thinking thoughts of love, unity, and abundance could counterbalance enormous negative thought forms. This is why your personal mental discipline isn't just about your individual life. You're either contributing to humanity's collective suffering or collective awakening through the thoughts you choose to energize. So let me ask you directly, if you knew that every thought you think for the next month would materialize exactly into your circumstances a year from now, would you think differently? Would you guard your mind more carefully? Would you be more selective about what thoughts you give energy to? Cayce is telling you this is precisely how it works, not with exact timing, but with absolute certainty. Your thoughts are creating your future right now, not might create, are creating. This brings us to the practical question. How do you begin taking control of this creative process? Cayce recommended starting with awareness. For one day, simply notice your thoughts without judging them. Don't try to change them yet, just observe. You'll be shocked by how much mental chaos you've been unconsciously accepting. Thoughts of worry, criticism, fear, and judgment probably dominate. Random fragments of songs, conversations, memories flowing without direction. This is the uncontrolled mind that's been creating your reality. Once you see this clearly, you can begin introducing conscious thought periods. Set a timer for 5 minutes. During that time, deliberately think thoughts aligned with your spiritual ideal. If your ideal is love in action, spend 5 minutes thinking thoughts of love toward yourself, others, even difficult situations. Your mind will wander. This is normal. Gently bring it back. You're building new neural pathways, new thought habits. Do this daily, and those 5 minutes will gradually influence your other 23 hours and 55 minutes. Cayce also emphasized the power of affirmations, but not mindless repetition. An affirmation should be a concentrated thought form you consciously create and energize. Choose one statement that embodies your spiritual ideal. I am a channel of divine love. I am fulfilling my soul's purpose. Say it slowly with full attention, feeling its truth in your body, visualizing yourself embodying it. This isn't self-deception. It's calling forth the divine reality that exists beyond your current limited manifestation. And please understand, this work will bring resistance. When you begin redirecting thought energy away from old patterns, those thought forms don't dissolve quietly. They intensify, throwing up stronger fears, doubts, and temptations to return to familiar mental ruts. This is when most people quit, thinking the practice isn't working. But this intensity is proof it is working. You're disrupting patterns that have had control for years or lifetimes. They're fighting for survival. Your commitment must outlast their resistance. Here's something Cayce revealed that offers tremendous hope. You have allies in this work. When you make sincere effort to align your thoughts with divine will, spiritual forces respond to assist you. Guardian entities, higher aspects of your own consciousness, even the Christ consciousness itself becomes available to support your transformation. You're not doing this alone. But the initial movement must come from you. The decision, the daily practice, the willingness to observe your thoughts honestly and choose differently. Now I want to pause and invite you to take action. If this message is resonating with something deep inside you, if you're recognizing patterns you need to transform, show that recognition by hitting the like button. It's not about the algorithm. It's about you making a conscious declaration that you're ready to take responsibility for your thoughts. And subscribe to this channel, because we're going deeper into Cayce's teachings on how to actually implement these principles, how to work with your subconscious, how to align all levels of your being with your spiritual purpose. The comment section is where our community supports each other in this work, so share what thought patterns you're recognizing that need transformation. I want to address something critical that Cayce emphasized: the relationship between thought and emotion. Many people try to control thoughts through willpower alone, but Cayce found this rarely works long-term. Why? Because beneath most habitual thoughts are unprocessed emotions driving them. The thought pattern of anxiety often covers fear you haven't acknowledged. The thought pattern of criticism often covers pain you haven't grieved. The thought pattern of unworthiness often covers shame you've buried. Real thought transformation requires feeling your emotions honestly, not acting them out, but creating space to feel them fully in your body without the stories your mind tells about them. When you can feel fear as pure sensation without the catastrophic thoughts, the fear gradually discharges its energy. The thought pattern loses its fuel. This is why Cayce emphasized prayer and meditation together. Prayer accesses the emotional body, meditation accesses the mental body, and both are needed for complete transformation. Consider how much energy you spend maintaining thought patterns that don't serve you, the constant mental commentary, judging yourself and others, the rehearsing of conversations that will never happen, the replaying of past grievances, the projecting of fearful futures. All this mental activity is creative force being wasted or misdirected. Imagine if you could redirect even half that energy toward conscious creation aligned with your spiritual purpose. Your life would transform within months. But here's what stops most people. They identify with their thoughts. You think you are your thoughts, so changing them feels like dying. This is the great illusion Cayce worked to shatter. You are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness aware of thoughts. When you realize this through direct experience in meditation, everything changes. Thoughts become tools you can pick up and put down rather than tyrants you must obey. This shift from identifying with thoughts to witnessing thoughts is perhaps the most important spiritual breakthrough available. Let me give you a practice Cayce endorsed. When you notice a destructive thought pattern, instead of fighting it or feeling guilty about it, simply say, "That's an interesting thought," and consciously choose a different one. This simple phrase creates distance between you and the thought. You're not the thought, you're the one noticing it. Then deliberately think a thought aligned with your ideal. You're not suppressing the negative thought, which just drives it into the subconscious. You're acknowledging it and choosing something else. Over time, this practice weakens the destructive pattern's grip. Cayce also spoke about the power of gratitude as a thought transformer. When you're genuinely grateful, you cannot simultaneously hold thoughts of fear or lack. Gratitude thoughts vibrate at a frequency that naturally dissolves lower vibration patterns. This is why he recommended starting and ending each day with specific gratitude, not generic thankfulness, but detailed appreciation for specific gifts in your life. This practice gradually shifts your baseline thought patterns from focusing on problems to recognizing blessings, and that shift transforms what manifests. Now let's talk about something Cayce revealed that explains why some people seem to manifest easily, while others struggle despite effort. It's about permission. Deep in your subconscious, you may hold thought forms that forbid you from receiving good. These often come from religious conditioning about unworthiness, from family patterns of scarcity, or from past life experiences of punishment for success. Until you uncover and release these permission barriers, your conscious positive thoughts will be sabotaged by subconscious prohibition. This is where Cayce's emphasis on spiritual ideals becomes practical. When you establish that your ideal is to be a channel for divine love and service, you're giving yourself permission to receive whatever supports that ideal. You're not asking for good selfishly. You're recognizing that you need resources, health, and support to fulfill your spiritual purpose. This alignment removes subconscious blocks because there's no longer conflict between conscious desire and spiritual purpose. Are you starting to see how sophisticated this teaching really is? Cayce wasn't offering simplistic think positive and get stuff philosophy. He was revealing the actual mechanics of consciousness and creation, showing that thought transformation requires working simultaneously with the conscious mind, subconscious patterns, emotional body, spiritual ideals, and higher consciousness. It's comprehensive spiritual science, and here's what makes it urgent for you personally. You're going to think thoughts today regardless. Your mind will not be empty. The question is whether those thoughts will be chosen consciously or will simply be reactions to circumstances, recycled patterns from the past, and unconscious programming. Every moment you're not directing your thoughts consciously is a moment they're being directed by whatever has captured your attention. Social media, news, other people's opinions, your own past conditioning. What would it mean to become truly sovereign in your own consciousness? To recognize that while you cannot always control circumstances, you can choose your response to them. And that response, the thoughts you think about circumstances, is what actually shapes your experience and future. This is real power, and it's available to you right now. Cayce saw that most people live as victims of their thoughts, born blown about by whatever mental wind happens to blow through consciousness. But he also saw the possibility of becoming a master of thought, choosing deliberately what to energize, building thought forms that serve your soul's evolution. This mastery doesn't happen overnight, but it can begin today with a simple decision. I will no longer give unconscious thoughts permission to create my reality. I will observe. I will choose. I will practice. One final thing Cayce emphasized: consistency matters more than intensity. 5 minutes of conscious thought direction daily for a year will transform your life more than a weekend intensive, where you try to change everything at once. Your subconscious responds to repetition, to sustained attention, to gentle persistence. It doesn't respond well to force or urgency. This is a practice of patience, self-compassion, and daily commitment. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, commit to 10 minutes of conscious thought practice. 5 minutes in the morning directing your thoughts toward your spiritual ideal. 5 minutes at night reviewing your day and consciously releasing thoughts that don't serve. Just 10 minutes daily. But do it every single day without exception. Watch what changes. Watch what you begin noticing. Watch what starts manifesting. Because here's the truth Cayce spent his life revealing. You are not a powerless being subject to random fate. You are a creative spiritual entity whose primary tool of creation is thought. You have been given the awesome responsibility and privilege of shaping your reality through consciousness. The question that will determine your entire spiritual trajectory is simply this: will you accept that responsibility? Will you begin choosing your thoughts as deliberately as an artist chooses colors? Will you stop being a victim of mental chaos and become a conscious creator aligned with divine purpose? Your thoughts are shaping your reality right now. They're building your tomorrow, your next year, your next incarnation. They're either moving you towards spiritual awakening or keeping you trapped in cycles of suffering. There is no neutral ground. Every thought is a vote for the reality you'll experience. What are you voting for? And more importantly, what are you going to vote for in the next moment and the moment after that and every moment from now forward? That's the question that matters. That's the question your soul came here to answer. Are you ready to answer it? Your thoughts are physically restructuring the universe around you right now, and Edgar Cayce proved it decades before quantum physics caught up. In his trance states, Cayce revealed something that contradicts everything you've been taught about reality. The material world isn't solid, permanent, or even real in the way you think it is. It's malleable, responsive, and waiting for your consciousness to shape it. But here's what nobody tells you. Most people are unconsciously manifesting their worst fears, trapped in cycles they don't even realize they're creating. Cayce's readings exposed the precise mechanics of how thought energy crystallizes into physical matter, how your habitual mental patterns are literally building your future circumstances, and why the life you're living right now is a perfect mirror of your dominant consciousness. The question isn't whether you're manifesting. You already are every single moment. The question is, are you creating the life your soul intended, or are you unconsciously constructing a prison of limitation and fear? What are your thoughts building right now? Liberation or chains? Edgar Cayce didn't speak in abstract metaphors when he described manifestation. In his readings, he outlined a precise spiritual science, a systematic explanation of how invisible thought force transforms into visible material reality. This wasn't philosophy or positive thinking. This was Cayce in deep trance, accessing universal knowledge and explaining the fundamental architecture of creation itself. And what he revealed should fundamentally change how you understand your own power. Cayce explained that thoughts are not ephemeral, fleeting things that disappear into nothingness. They are actual forces, spiritual energies that move through dimensions of reality most people never perceive. Every thought you think sends ripples through what Cayce called the Akashic records, the energetic database of all consciousness, past, present, and potential future. Your thoughts don't just stay inside your head. They radiate outward, attracting similar vibrations, building momentum, and eventually condensing into the physical circumstances of your life. This is not metaphor. This is mechanics. But here's where Cayce's teachings diverge sharply from modern manifestation culture. He didn't say you could simply think about a new car and it would appear. He said something far more profound and demanding. Your outer world will always eventually conform to your inner world, not your wishful thinking, not your desperate wanting, your core beliefs, your habitual mental patterns, your spiritual alignment. These are what manifest. And for most people, Cayce warned, those core patterns are unconscious, inherited, and destructive. Think about your life right now. The relationships you have, the financial situation you're in, the health challenges you face, the opportunities that seem to appear or disappear. Cayce would tell you these aren't accidents, coincidences, or bad luck. They're manifestations. Your current reality is a perfect photograph of your consciousness over the past months and years. If you don't like what you see, you're looking at the evidence of thought patterns you may not even know you're running. Are you ready to face that level of responsibility? Cayce revealed that the process of manifestation operates through specific spiritual laws that are as reliable as gravity. Everything in the universe, from the densest matter to the most refined spiritual essence, is vibrating energy. Your thoughts have a vibrational frequency. Fear vibrates at one frequency, love at another. Resentment, gratitude, worry, faith, each has its own energetic signature. And here's the crucial part. You attract and create circumstances that match your dominant vibration. You cannot think thoughts of limitation and lack while simultaneously manifesting abundance. The universe doesn't work that way. You get what you are, not what you want. In his readings, Cayce went deeper. He explained that thought is the builder, literally the construction force of reality. Spirit is the life force, the animating principle. Mind is the intermediary, the bridge between spirit and matter. And thought arising from mind is what shapes and directs that spiritual life force into material form. This is why affirmations and visualization work for some people and fail for others. If your conscious affirmations are contradicted by deeper unconscious beliefs, the unconscious wins every time. The thoughts you don't even know you're thinking are building your reality while you sleep. Cayce emphasized something that makes people deeply uncomfortable. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of them. That job you hate, you manifested it through thought patterns of unworthiness or fear of risk. That toxic relationship, you attracted it through vibrations of emotional neediness or unhealed trauma. That chronic illness? Cayce's readings often traced physical ailments to specific mental and emotional patterns held over time. This isn't about blame or guilt. If you created your current reality unconsciously, you can create a new reality consciously. But first, you have to stop lying to yourself about where you really are and what you really believe. The mechanism Cayce described works like this. You hold a thought with emotional intensity and repetition. That thought energy begins to take shape in the mental plane, an invisible dimension where all creation begins. As you continue to energize that thought with attention, emotion, and belief, it gains density and magnetic power. It starts attracting corresponding energies, circumstances, and people into your orbit. Eventually, if sustained, that thought pattern crosses a threshold and precipitates into physical reality. Time lag exists, sometimes weeks, sometimes years, but the manifestation is inevitable if the thought is consistently held. You are always manifesting. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, constructively or destructively. Here's what Cayce warned about repeatedly. Most people are manifesting their fears, not their desires. Fear is one of the most powerful emotional energizers of thought. When you worry obsessively about something, you're not protecting yourself, you're invoking it. You're sending out a powerful vibrational signal that says, "This is what I expect. This is what I'm aligned with. Bring this to me." Cayce saw this in reading after reading. People creating the very outcomes they were desperately trying to avoid, simply because their consciousness was dominated by fear of those outcomes. Worry is negative prayer. It's manifestation in reverse. And most people spend more time worrying about what they don't want than focusing on what they do want. But Cayce also revealed the antidote, and it's both simple and demanding. He said the most powerful manifesting force in the universe is love. Specifically, love aligned with divine will. When your desires emerge from love, from a genuine desire to serve and grow spiritually, from alignment with your soul's mission, they manifest with astonishing speed and synchronicity. The universe conspires to support you. Doors open, resources appear. The right people show up at the right time. This isn't magic. It's you finally aligning your personal will with universal law. You're no longer pushing against the current. You're flowing with it. Cayce taught that the Christ consciousness, the awareness of divine love and oneness that Jesus embodied, is the ultimate manifesting state. When you think and feel from that level of consciousness, you're not trying to manipulate reality for ego gratification. You're allowing divine intelligence to work through you. Your manifestations serve not just yourself, but the greater good. And paradoxically, that's when your personal desires are fulfilled most abundantly. The universe trusts you with resources when you've proven you'll use them wisely and lovingly. Let's get practical, because Cayce never left people with theory alone. If you want to consciously manifest using his teachings, you must start with radical self-examination. What are you actually thinking about most of the day? Not what you tell yourself you're thinking, what your mind defaults to when it's not occupied. Are your thoughts critical, fearful, resentful, comparative, or are they grateful, hopeful, loving, faithful? Track your thoughts for one day like a scientist studying data. You'll be shocked at how negative, repetitive, and unconscious your mental patterns are. That's your current manifestation blueprint. That's what you're creating. Next, Cayce insisted on the practice of meditation, not as relaxation but as the training ground for conscious thought control. In meditation, you learn to observe thoughts without being controlled by them. You learn to choose which thoughts to energize and which to let pass. You learn to access the still centered point of consciousness where you're connected to infinite intelligence. From that place, your manifestations aren't desperate graspings of the ego. They're inspired co-creations with the divine. Cayce said that 5 minutes of genuine meditation, where you touch that Christ consciousness, does more to reshape your reality than hours of forced affirmations. And here's a Cayce teaching that modern manifestation gurus often miss: the power of consistency and patience. Manifestation isn't instant. You're not ordering from a cosmic Amazon with 2-day delivery. You're planting seeds in spiritual soil, and they need time to germinate, take root, and break through the surface. The thoughts you think today are building tomorrow's circumstances, but you may not see results for weeks or months. Most people give up right before the breakthrough. They plant seeds, don't see immediate results, doubt the process, and dig up the seeds to see if they're growing. Then they wonder why nothing manifests. Cayce taught unwavering faith, not blind belief, but sustained trust in the spiritual laws you're working with. But there's a shadow side to manifestation that Cayce was unflinching about addressing. You can manifest material success, wealth, and power while completely failing your soul's mission. You can get everything you thought you wanted and discover it's empty, unfulfilling, and spiritually bankrupt. Cayce warned that many souls incarnate with specific lessons to learn and service to render. If you use manifestation purely for ego gratification, to accumulate, impress, control, or dominate, you may succeed materially while failing spiritually. And that failure has consequences that extend beyond this lifetime. Your soul keeps track even when your ego doesn't. So before you focus on manifesting that dream house, that perfect relationship, that thriving business, Cayce would ask you, why do you want these things? Will they help you fulfill your spiritual purpose? Will they enable you to serve more effectively? Will they bring you closer to God and to expressing Christ-like love? Or are you trying to fill an internal void with external things? Are you trying to prove your worth, gain approval, escape fear, or medicate pain? Because if your motivations are rooted in ego and fear rather than love and purpose, you'll either fail to manifest, or you'll manifest and discover it doesn't satisfy you the way you thought it would. Cayce also taught that you can't manifest in isolation. You're not a separate entity trying to bend an indifferent universe to your will. You're an integral part of a living, conscious cosmos. Your thoughts affect the whole, just as the whole affects you. This is why group prayer and collective intention are so powerful. You're amplifying the manifesting force by aligning multiple consciousness streams. But it also means you have responsibility. Your negative, fearful, hateful thoughts pollute the collective consciousness, just as toxic waste pollutes the environment. Your loving, faithful, hopeful thoughts heal and uplift everyone they touch. You're manifesting not just your personal reality, but contributing to humanity's collective reality. What are you contributing? If you'd like to support this journey of spiritual awakening, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're building a community of conscious creators who understand that manifestation isn't about getting stuff. It's about becoming who you really are. Let's talk about the role of emotion in Cayce's manifestation science. Thought provides the blueprint, but emotion provides the energy. Thought without emotion is like a seed without water. It has potential but no animating force. Emotion is the bridge between the mental plane and the physical plane. When you think a thought and feel it deeply, you're supercharging that thought with creative power. This is why you can't manifest something you're ambivalent about. Desire must be strong enough to generate emotional energy. But, and this is crucial, the emotion must be positive. Fear-based emotion will manifest, but it manifests what you fear, not what you desire. Only love-based emotion, joy, gratitude, excitement, faith, manifests your true desires. Cayce gave specific guidance on how to emotionalize your desires correctly. He said to imagine your desire already fulfilled. Not, I want to be healthy. That's present tense acknowledgement of current lack. Instead, I am healthy, I am vibrant, I am whole. Feel the gratitude you would feel if that were already true. Feel the joy, feel the relief, live in that emotional state as much as possible, and the external circumstances will shift to match that internal state. You're not pretending, you're aligning with a reality that already exists in potential and calling it into manifestation. But here's where people get stuck. They try to do this while simultaneously holding contradictory beliefs. They affirm abundance while believing deep down that they don't deserve it, that money is evil, that spiritual people should be poor, or that they've done something unforgivable that disqualifies them from blessings. Cayce said, you must clear the debris, the limiting beliefs, the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness, before manifestation can flow freely. This is inner work. This is shadow work. This is facing the parts of yourself you've been avoiding and bringing them into the light for healing. You can't manifest a new life while clinging to an old identity. Cayce also addressed the timing question that frustrates everyone. Why hasn't my desire manifested yet? His readings revealed several possible reasons. First, you may not truly believe it's possible for you. Your subconscious doubt is cancelling out your conscious affirmation. Second, you may be trying to manifest something that's not in alignment with your soul's plan for this lifetime. The universe isn't blocking you to be cruel. It's protecting you from something that would ultimately derail your spiritual growth. Third, you may need to develop certain qualities or learn certain lessons before you're ready to handle what you're asking for. And fourth, the timing may simply not be right yet. All the pieces may not be in place. Trust the process. This brings us to one of Cayce's most challenging teachings: surrender. After you've clarified your desire, emotionalized it, taken aligned action and done the inner work, you must surrender the outcome. This isn't giving up. This is releasing your stranglehold of control and trusting that infinite intelligence knows better than your limited ego what's truly best for you. Cayce often said, "Not my will, but thy will be done." He wasn't advocating passivity. He was advocating alignment with divine will, which always leads to your highest good even when it looks different than you expected. The manifestations that come through surrender are often far better than what your ego could have imagined. Let's address something uncomfortable. If you look at your current life and you're not happy with it, that's evidence that your manifestation skills have been working perfectly, just unconsciously and destructively. You've been a powerful creator all along. You've just been creating blindly. The poverty, the loneliness, the illness, the chaos, you participated in manifesting those through unconscious thought patterns, probably inherited from childhood culture or past trauma. This isn't about blame. It's about awakening to your power. If you created this unconsciously, imagine what you can create consciously. Cayce would ask you right now, what story are you telling yourself about your life? Is it a story of victimhood and limitation, or is it a story of empowerment and possibility? Because that story, repeated in your mind thousands of times, is a manifesting instruction to the universe. You're literally authoring your life with your self-talk. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't afford that, I'm not smart enough, nothing ever works out for me, I'm destined to be alone, congratulations, you're manifesting those exact limitations with precision. Change the story. Change your life. Here's a Cayce practice you can implement immediately. Every morning before you engage with the external world, spend time in what he called the silence. Sit quietly. Connect with the divine presence within you. Set your intention for the day, not a to-do list but a vibrational intention. Today I move through the world as a channel of love. Today I trust divine timing. Today I see opportunities everywhere. Feel that intention emotionally. Then go live your day from that consciousness. At night, review your day. Where did you align with your intention? Where did you slip back into old patterns? Adjust. Refine. This daily practice reprograms your subconscious and begins to shift your vibrational set point. Cayce also taught the power of spoken word. Your voice carries creative force. When you speak, you're sending vibrations into the physical world with more impact than thought alone. This is why affirmations said aloud are more powerful than affirmations only thought. But be careful what you speak casually. Complaining, gossiping, speaking negatively about yourself or others. These aren't just bad habits, they're acts of creation. You're manifesting negativity with every word. Cayce advised people to guard their speech as carefully as they would guard precious treasure, because speech is treasure, it's creative power. Speak life, speak blessing, speak faith. Now, let's talk about action. Cayce never suggested that you just sit around visualizing and waiting for things to fall into your lap. Manifestation requires aligned action. You hold the vision, you maintain the vibration, and then you take whatever action feels inspired. Not forced, desperate action from fear and lack. Inspired action from faith and abundance. The universe will give you impulses, intuitions, and opportunities, small steps to take. You take them, and the next step appears. This is co-creation. You're not doing it alone, but you're also not passive. You're in partnership with infinite intelligence, doing your part while trusting the universe to do its part. One of the most powerful manifestation tools Cayce gave is gratitude. Not gratitude for what you want to manifest. That keeps it in the future. Gratitude for what you already have and gratitude as if what you desire has already manifested. Thank you for my healing. Thank you for abundance flowing to me now. Thank you for the perfect relationship that's coming into my life. Gratitude is a high vibration emotion that accelerates manifestation. It also shifts your focus from lack to abundance, and where your focus goes, energy flows. Make gratitude your default state. Find things to appreciate in every moment. Watch how your reality transforms. But Cayce would also want you to examine the quality of what you're trying to manifest. Are your desires aligned with your higher self, or are they ego demands? There's a difference between wanting financial abundance so you can serve more effectively and support your loved ones, versus wanting wealth to prove your worth or lord it over others. There's a difference between desiring a loving relationship to share your spiritual journey versus wanting a relationship to complete you because you feel incomplete alone. The universe responds to the energy behind the desire, not just the desire itself. Purify your intentions. Make sure you're manifesting from love, not fear or ego. So let me ask you directly, what are you manifesting right now? Not what do you want to manifest. What are you actually currently manifesting through your habitual thoughts, emotions, words, and actions? Look at your life. That's the answer. And here's the deeper question. Are you manifesting the life your soul came here to live, or are you manifesting a life designed to please others, meet cultural expectations, or keep you safe and small? Because Cayce's readings make it clear, your soul has a mission, a purpose, a specific contribution to make to the world. And if you're not manifesting in alignment with that mission, you're going to feel empty, no matter how much you accumulate. This is where manifestation becomes spiritual practice, not self-help technique. Cayce taught that the ultimate manifestation isn't a thing, it's a state of being. It's the manifestation of your true self, your Christ consciousness, your divine nature. When you manifest that, when you become who you really are at the soul level, everything else falls into place effortlessly. The right work finds you. the right people appear. The resources you need show up. Because you're no longer trying to force manifestation from ego. You're allowing manifestation to flow through alignment with your soul's purpose. If transforming your life through conscious creation resonates with you, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share your insights in the comments. What's one thought pattern you're ready to change? What's one thing you're ready to manifest from soul alignment rather than ego desire? Let's support each other in this journey. Cayce made it clear that you're far more powerful than you've been taught to believe. You're not a powerless speck in an indifferent universe. You're a spiritual being having a human experience, and you have access to the same creative force that spoke the cosmos into existence. Thought is the builder. Your thoughts. Right now, in this moment, what are they building? A future of expansion or contraction? Freedom or fear? Service or selfishness? You don't get a pass on this. You're creating whether you're aware of it or not. The question is whether you'll create consciously and responsibly, or unconsciously and destructively. And here's the final question Cayce would leave you with. When this life is over, and you return to the spiritual realm, will you look back and see that you manifested the life you were meant to live? Will you see evidence that you used your creative power wisely, lovingly, and in service to the greater good? Or will you see a life spent manifesting distractions, accumulating things that didn't matter, and ignoring the whispers of your soul calling you to your true purpose? Building that future right now. What are you going to create? Your soul's destination after death isn't determined by whether you believed the right things, but by the vibrational frequency you cultivated while alive. And according to Edgar Cayce's psychic readings, millions of souls are trapped right now in what he called the lower realms, unable to ascend because they refuse to face one simple truth during their earthly existence. These aren't places of eternal punishment, but dimensions of consciousness, where souls who lived selfishly, materialistically, or in denial of their spiritual nature find themselves bound by the very thought patterns they created in life. Cayce, during his thousands of trance readings, described these realms with disturbing clarity. Dimensions where the deceased replay their mistakes endlessly, where earthly addictions still torment without physical bodies to satisfy them, where souls recognize too late the opportunities they squandered. The most haunting part? The souls stuck there can see those of us still living, desperately trying to communicate warnings we're too distracted to hear. What vibrational frequency are you creating right now? Share in the comments what aspect of your life might be anchoring you to lower consciousness. What if I told you that the life you're living right now, the thoughts you're thinking, the desires you're feeding, are quite literally constructing the dimension of reality you'll inhabit the moment your heart stops beating? Edgar Cayce, America's most documented psychic, spent over 40 years in trance states, accessing what he called the Akashic records, and he brought back descriptions of the afterlife that should terrify anyone living a spiritually unconscious existence. Because according to Cayce's readings, hell isn't a place you're sent to by an angry God. It's a dimension of consciousness you've been building for yourself your entire life, thought by thought, choice by choice, priority by priority. Cayce described the afterlife as comprising multiple dimensional planes, each vibrating at different frequencies of consciousness. The higher realms, what he sometimes called the celestial dimensions, exist at frequencies of love, service, spiritual awareness, and Christ consciousness. But the lower realms, those dense, heavy dimensions closest to the earthly plane, vibrate at frequencies of materialism, selfishness, fear, addiction, and spiritual blindness. And here's what should shake you to your core. You don't go to the realm you think you deserve or the one you hoped for. You go to the realm that matches the dominant vibrational frequency you've been emanating. In his readings, Cayce revealed 7 critical truths that souls in these lower realms desperately wish they could communicate to those still living. These aren't metaphors or symbolic teachings. These are descriptions of actual dimensional realities that Cayce accessed repeatedly during his psychic readings, realities that countless souls currently inhabit, souls who thought they had plenty of time to get their spiritual lives in order, souls who prioritized everything except what actually mattered. The first truth is perhaps the most disturbing. In the lower realms, you're still conscious, still you, still carrying all your earthly memories and desires, but without the physical body to satisfy them. Cayce described souls trapped in what he called the borderland, the lowest vibrational dimension closest to Earth, still obsessed with the material possessions they accumulated, the status they achieved, the pleasures they indulged. Imagine craving alcohol, but having no mouth to drink with. Imagine lusting for physical intimacy, but existing as pure consciousness. Imagine obsessing over money and power you can no longer touch or use. These souls, Cayce explained, often remain so attached to earthly life that they hover around the living, sometimes for years, trying desperately to experience physical sensations through others, to influence decisions, to hold on to what they can no longer possess. Are you living right now as if physical pleasure, material success, and earthly achievement are what life is fundamentally about? Because if you are, Cayce's readings suggest you're constructing your future prison. The second truth is equally chilling. The lower realms operate on what Cayce called the law of like attracts like. Souls find themselves surrounded by others who vibrated at similar frequencies. The selfish cluster with the selfish. The cruel encounter the cruel. The spiritually blind remain blind together. There's no diversity of consciousness in these dimensions, no exposure to higher perspectives, because the realm itself is created by collective thought patterns of the same vibrational quality. Cayce described it as a self-reinforcing loop of limited consciousness. You're not learning, not growing, not evolving, because everyone around you reflects back the same limited perspective you held in life. It's an echo chamber of stunted spiritual development. Think about the people you surround yourself with right now. Are they elevating your consciousness or reinforcing your limitations? Because Cayce's readings make clear that the company you're keeping in life foreshadows the company you'll keep in death. The third truth is perhaps the most tragic. Souls in the lower realms can see the higher dimensions above them. Cayce explained that consciousness in the afterlife isn't blind. Those trapped in dense, heavy realms can perceive the light, love and freedom of the celestial dimensions. They can see souls who spent their earthly lives in service, in spiritual practice, in conscious alignment with divine will, now experiencing the fullness of spiritual liberation. It's not that a punishing God is showing them what they're missing. It's that consciousness itself is transparent across dimensions. They see clearly now what they couldn't see in life, that the spiritual path they mocked or ignored or put off until later was the only thing that actually mattered. And the regret, Cayce said, is almost unbearable. You have right now what they desperately wish they had. A physical life, time, opportunity to change course. Are you using it? Or are you sleepwalking through your one precious incarnation? The fourth truth is about time perception. Cayce revealed that in the lower realms, time moves differently, sometimes seeming to stretch endlessly. What might be days in earthly time can feel like years in these dense dimensions, because time isn't measured by clocks, but by consciousness. And when consciousness is trapped in repetitive thought patterns, replaying mistakes, cycling through regret, time becomes a kind of psychological eternity. Souls describe going over the same memories again and again, seeing clearly now the moments when they chose ego over service, pleasure over purpose, material gain over spiritual growth. It's not punishment imposed from outside. It's the natural consequence of unresolved consciousness examining itself with nowhere to hide. Are there patterns in your life right now that you keep repeating? Lessons you keep refusing to learn? Because Cayce's readings suggest that whatever you don't resolve in life, you'll be forced to relive in death until you finally understand. The fifth truth is about the nature of help. Cayce explained that souls in higher dimensions, including loved ones who've crossed over in a spiritually awakened state, can perceive those trapped in lower realms and often try to help. But there's a cosmic law at work. Help can only be received to the degree that consciousness is willing to receive it. A soul completely identified with materialistic thinking, with victim consciousness, with blame and resentment, literally cannot perceive the help being offered, because it exists at a frequency they've tuned themselves out of. It's like being surrounded by people speaking a language you never bothered to learn. The communication is happening, but you've rendered yourself unable to comprehend it. Who in your life right now is trying to wake you up? What wisdom are you refusing to hear because it challenges the comfortable illusions you've built? The sixth truth is perhaps the most urgent. The lower realms aren't eternal. They're not a forever hell. Cayce was clear that all souls eventually evolve, eventually learn, eventually raise their vibrational frequency enough to ascend to higher dimensions. But the time it takes varies enormously, based on the soul's willingness to take responsibility, to forgive, including themselves, to release earthly attachments, to genuinely desire spiritual growth over spiritual comfort. Some souls, Cayce indicated, remain in these dense dimensions for what might be equivalent to centuries of earthly time before they finally surrender their ego's narrative and open to transformation. Others, even in the lower realms, experience something Cayce called a quickening, a moment of profound realization that catalyzes rapid spiritual growth. But here's what should motivate you. Why wait until you're dead to do the spiritual work? Why enter the afterlife at the kindergarten level of consciousness when you could be arriving at the graduate level? Every moment of spiritual practice, every act of genuine service, every time you choose love over fear, forgiveness over resentment, purpose over pleasure, you're literally raising your vibrational frequency, constructing the dimensional reality you'll inhabit. Let me ask you directly, if you died tonight, which realm would match your current frequency? The seventh truth is the one that should change how you live every remaining day of your life. According to Cayce, souls in the lower realms who finally experience their awakening, who do the hard work of transforming their consciousness, who learn the lessons they refuse to learn in life, often choose to reincarnate quickly. Not because they're forced to, but because they recognize with devastating clarity how much time they wasted, how many opportunities they squandered. They want to come back, to get it right this time, to live with spiritual purpose from the beginning. But Cayce also revealed something that should make you pause. The circumstances of their next incarnation are often more difficult because the soul itself chooses challenges that will prevent the same mistakes, that will force the spiritual growth they avoided before. You might be living right now in an incarnation designed by your own soul to correct mistakes from previous lives. Are you learning the lessons, or are you repeating the patterns? Throughout his readings, Cayce emphasized one practice above all others for those who want to avoid the lower realms. Know yourself as a spiritual being having a temporary physical experience, not a physical being occasionally having spiritual thoughts. The souls trapped in dense dimensions made one fundamental error. They identified completely with their earthly personality, their body, their possessions, their achievements, their relationships. They confused the costume for the actor, the character for the soul, and when death stripped away the physical, they found themselves lost, confused, still clinging to an identity that no longer existed. The way out, the way up, both in life and in death, is the same. Remember who you really are. You're not your job, your bank account, your social status, your physical appearance, your political opinions, your achievements, or your failures. You're an eternal spiritual being, a fragment of divine consciousness, temporarily inhabiting physical form for the purpose of soul growth. Every challenge you face is curriculum. Every person you encounter is teacher or student. Every moment is an opportunity to choose the frequency that elevates or the frequency that diminishes. Cayce spoke often about what he called attunement, the practice of deliberately aligning your consciousness with the highest spiritual frequencies. Prayer, meditation, service to others, creative expression used for uplifting purposes, spending time in nature, studying spiritual truths, practicing forgiveness. These aren't religious obligations or New Age hobbies. They're vibrational technologies, methods for literally tuning your consciousness to frequencies that resonate with higher dimensions. If this message is making you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is your soul trying to get your attention, trying to wake you up before it's too late. Because here's what Cayce emphasized repeatedly. You have free will, always. God isn't condemning anyone to lower realms. Souls condemn themselves through the choices they make, the consciousness they cultivate, the spiritual laziness they justify. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep exploring Edgar Cayce's teachings. Keep bringing you the truths that the spiritually asleep don't want to hear. Keep challenging you to live at the frequency your soul came here to embody. Your eternal self will thank you. The most sobering aspect of Cayce's descriptions of the lower realms is how ordinary the people are who end up there. Not monsters, not criminals, just regular people who got caught up in the earthly game. People who meant to develop spiritually, but never quite got around to it. People who knew they should meditate, should serve others, should forgive, should simplify their lives, but always found reasons to postpone. People who let the urgent crowd out the important, who let material success distract from spiritual purpose, who let fear prevent the very transformation they knew they needed. Sound familiar? Cayce revealed that from the perspective of the lower realms, looking back at earthly life, certain things become crystal clear. All the things you stressed about, career advancement, social approval, accumulating possessions, don't matter at all. Not even a little. The only things that matter are, did you love, did you serve, did you grow spiritually? Did you help others grow? Did you recognize the divine in all beings? Did you live as your soul intended or as your ego demanded? Those souls trapped in dense dimensions would give anything for one more day in physical form. One more chance to choose differently, to prioritize what actually matters. You have that day. You have this moment. What are you going to do with it? Cayce also spoke about something he called soul records, the complete energetic imprint of every thought, word, and action from your life. In the lower realms, souls experience what he described as a life review, but it's not some external judge reviewing your records. You become the reviewer. You experience from a place of expanded consciousness the full impact of your choices. You feel what others felt because of your words and actions. You see the ripples of consequence from your selfishness or your service. You understand with painful clarity the opportunities you had and what you did with them. If you knew you were going to experience such a review, where you'd feel the full weight of every careless word, every selfish act, every time you chose your comfort over someone else's need, would you live differently right now? The encouraging news in Cayce's teachings is that the spiritual path isn't complicated. It's not about perfection or becoming some enlightened guru. It's about sincere effort, genuine desire for growth, and consistent practice of spiritual principles. He emphasized that even small acts of kindness, moments of authentic presence, choosing love when fear would be easier, these elevate your vibration. The soul that consistently tries, that keeps getting back up after falling, that genuinely wants to serve the highest good, is building frequency that resonates with higher dimensions. But the key word is genuine. Cayce was clear that you can't fake spiritual development. Your true vibrational frequency isn't determined by what you say or even what you consciously believe. It's determined by what you actually do, how you actually treat people when no one's watching, what you actually prioritize when choices have costs. Your consciousness knows the truth, even when your ego is spinning comfortable lies. So let me ask you the questions that souls in the lower realms wish someone had asked them with enough force to wake them up. Are you living the life your soul came here to live, or are you living the life your fear and ego have convinced you is all that's possible? Are you prioritizing spiritual growth, or are you prioritizing spiritual comfort? Are you serving something greater than yourself, or is your entire existence a monument to self-interest? When you're honest, brutally honest, what frequency are you actually vibrating at? Because Cayce's readings make devastatingly clear, you will end up in the dimension that matches your frequency, and pretending to be spiritual while living selfishly doesn't change your frequency at all. Before we close, take a moment and really like this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment sharing one thing you're going to change about how you're living after hearing these 7 truths. Your comment might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear to start their own transformation. We're all in this together, helping each other remember what actually matters. The ultimate message from those in the lower realms, channeled through Cayce's readings, is this: don't wait. Don't assume you have time. Don't keep postponing your spiritual development for some imaginary future when life is less busy or less complicated. Life will always be busy. There will always be distractions. There will always be reasons to prioritize the urgent over the important. The souls who end up trapped in dense dimensions are the souls who said later one too many times, who kept postponing their awakening until suddenly there was no more time to postpone. You're reading this for a reason. Your soul orchestrated this moment, made sure you'd encounter this message because part of you knows you need to hear it. Don't waste this wake-up call. Don't scroll past this and go right back to sleepwalking through your one precious life. Something in you knows that your current path, your current priorities, your current level of spiritual engagement isn't enough. Trust that knowing. Act on it. Today. Now. Edgar Cayce spent his life bringing back information from the other side, sacrificing his health and privacy to serve as a bridge between dimensions. He did this so you wouldn't have to learn these truths the hard way, so you could make different choices, while you still have choices to make. The question is, will you honor his service by actually changing, or will you treat this as interesting information you'll think about later? Later might be too late. The lower realms are full of souls who plan to get serious about spiritual development later. Which realm are you building for yourself right now?